And I've talked to friends who sometimes don't always trust financial advisors. So what would you say to people that are in their 30s that might think it's a gimmick or might think that it's going to be a painful experience having to not only talk about money, but then have to give money to the person consulting with them? Hello, Victor Gersten.
Well, hello.
Thank you for being here. Why don't you introduce yourself with your title and also the titles that you have, because you have a lot of certifications and degrees.
Of course, my name is Victor Gersten. I'm a certified financial planner. That means that I'm able to kind of help people with, financial planning and, here in the US. And I'm also an enroll agent. That also, it's a certification pretty much given by the IRS. And I have a few master's degrees in, one is in financial planning, the other one is in business.
I specifically picked you to interview because what you do is interesting. And also, I think that a lot of people think financial advising is just a boring topic in general. And it's sort of something like the dentist. People don't necessarily want to go, they don't want to have a consultation. They're not really eager to know all the time how they can plan about the future because it seems scary.
That's right. I'm actually very passionate about, financial planning and, finances in general. I think, sometimes a lot of people think that it's not a very sexy, career path. In fact, I've read how we have now less and less people studying to be an accountant or to be a financial advisor, because at the end of the day, what we do is, helping people reach their goals, right? I mean, yes, we call them financial goals, but at the end of the day, saving for your, kids' education, wedding, having a baby, buying a house, all these are just, lives, they're just goals that you have.
So let's get into it a little bit. I want to start out with your company itself, Cross Border Wealth Advisors. So can you give us like just a really brief explanation about who you work with and what your product and service is?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, after about 12 years being in the financial services industry, I realized that there was a little bit of a gap between that specialist that really knew about this very specific niche, right? So I definitely specialize in people who are moving either to, so we call them, there's two different names, right? So there is the outbound expats and the inbound expats. Outbound expats are going to be Americans moving to another country. Inbound expats are going to be foreigners moving to America. So my company is born out of the necessity that we haven't seen a lot of these different specialists doing financial planning, which is pretty much creating a financial plan, helping clients implementing the plan and monitoring the plan, and also managing their money. On top of it, we like to make it easy and also, help them filing, and preparing taxes. So we do a little bit of everything. We just like to offer everything under the same roof.
And you're working with generally a clientele that's probably above 50 or even 60 because they have more assets to manage. So for them to work with you, what is, if you feel comfortable saying, the amount of money they should typically have invested to be a good candidate for you?
Yeah, and so it's a very common question, right? So at what point should I have a financial advisor? And so this question has actually come before. So you don't have to be very wealthy to need a financial advisor or to actually get financial advice. In fact, I encourage people to get financial advice as soon as they can. It's one of those things. It's sort of like, going to a dentist, as you mentioned, right? You want to go as soon as you can, not when you already have a problem. When you already have a problem, it takes you a little bit longer. Now, to talk a little bit more about my company, we do specialize more in retirees, right? So they're a little bit more complex. They're moving to another country because they're retiring, and so that's the space that we specialize on. That's not to say that we've never had any younger clients. I've had plenty of younger clients. In fact, I'm very, it always makes me very happy to, talk to younger clients, because I think that's where we can make a big difference, right? When we can talk to someone either since their mid-20s or 30s, and we're going to be able to make a difference. So by the time that you're in your 40s or in your 50s, you're not scrambling, thinking, okay, do I have enough money? Am I really going to be able to retire? You're really going to have peace of mind by then.
Yeah, I'm glad you said 30s. That makes me feel still good, like I'm still on track. But you've done a lot of work with the student body on the collegiate level. But that's one thing that's interesting because you really do like helping youth succeed, but your clientele is more mature. So is that a decision based off of what would make your company more successful?
That's a very good question. So at the beginning, I really didn't have much of a focus, right? So I was thinking, well, I definitely know that I want to help, expats. When it comes to people being outside of the U.S., we have sort of like different type of people. We have the nomads who are younger, right? So the digital nomads. And so this group of people, what I found is that while they can benefit from some financial advice, they haven't really built the complexities that are required for what my firm is like prepared to do. But what really makes things complicated when you go to another country and you're a retiree is that you have more assets. So think always of like the more money that you have, it's almost like the more issues that you have, even though it sounds counterintuitive, right? We always want like more money, but just remember, if we have more assets, then we have to really take care of protecting those assets and making them as more tax efficient as possible.
But when you say expat, you're actually referring to, in your case, you help people specifically moving to Mexico or to Spain. So why did you choose those regions and what made you decide, instead of just staying domestically, that you wanted to work with people on a completely different level? Because it's the niche that you were talking about that also really didn't exist or have an expert in that field.
Having been born in Mexico, then lived in the US, and have the interest of having traveled to other countries, that really developed this additional interest in me to research more about tax planning in other countries and investment planning in other countries. And that led me to realize how complicated it was. And I realized that it was really up to me to either stay within my comfort zone domestically in San Diego or to do something very different that was totally outside of my comfort zone. I was getting a lot of inquiries from people, that a lot of Americans that were living in different countries. They're like, hey, I'm living in Mexico. I'm here. I'm living in Sweden. I'm living in Germany. I'm living in Thailand. And then I realized something that I sort of already knew from before. The world is really big. Every country is just so different. And then you realize that you may not really be able to grasp or even understand the situation, much less actually, helping or doing something. So then I knew I had to like limit my scope. And that's how I started limiting my scope to countries that I knew the language. So English or Spanish. I realized it varies a lot from country to country. So I'm like, well, where I speak, I speak Spanish and I understand, Colombian Spanish 99% of the time. There's going to be a lot of things I don't know about Colombia or about Costa Rica, and it will take me a long time to research. So as I kept narrowing down things, I realized that the best ways for me to ultra specialized in this niche, which was only Mexico, because I knew it very well. Not only I was born there, also had contacts there, but also I had property there, the business there, and I really understood the country very well. And then Spain, which is a country where I was living and I was also creating some connections. And I realized that the best is to know the most you can, so you help your client the best way. Not knowing enough sometimes can hurt your clients.
What was the moment that you decided, or what triggered you to finally say, this is it, I'm going to do my own thing?
Yeah, it was. I've always had my own ideas and my own way of doing things, right? And so when you work for a company, I'm very thankful for everything that I learned in the corporate world in the US, working for so many different financial institutions and for so many wonderful companies. But at the end of the day, when you work for a very large company, you're sort of like another piece of their ginormous machinery, right? And so they need you to be very uniform, and they need you to talk certain way, do certain things, and pretty much have a script. And so the creativity part, the creative part of yourself, it's almost like thrown outside of the window. And I really didn't want to do it like that. Also, I do pride myself in being a fee-only financial planner. So out there, just so you know, most of the financial institutions, like the big banks, they're not fee-only, right? They're commission-based. So not to say that that's the worst thing ever, but it's really about like who are you really working for, like who is in your best interest, right? So when you're a fee-only financial planner, the only person who is paying you is the client. When you're a commission advisor, you're getting commissions from different places. You're getting commissions from the investment company, from perhaps a referral fee. And so you may be less likely to work in the best interest of your clients.
And I've talked to friends who sometimes don't always trust financial advisors. I have the benefit of having you as my really good friend, so I already know how you work, but not everybody would have that personal connection. So what would you say to people that are in their 30s that might think it's a gimmick or might think that it's going to be a painful experience having to not only talk about money, but then have to give money to the person consulting with them?
Yeah, so and this is a very good point. And so it really comes down to a couple of different things. First of all, I always encourage everybody to do your research, right? You always want to do your research and you want to feel comfortable interviewing different financial advisors when you can just use a fee-only advisor. There is a website, and I think it's called Fee Only Planner or Fee Only Financial Advisor. I will send you that link. That's a good way to begin. Usually also someone who is a certified financial planner, a CFP, because that person needs to adhere to the board code of ethics. Currently, there is no restriction in using the term financial advisor for someone who does not have like the right education.
Thank you so much for being with us, Victor, and for sharing your knowledge. And we'll put your information below if people are interested in reaching out to you or have any questions.
Thank you for having me.